For more than 2 years, scenes like this have been happening on a pretty much daily basis, but now they could be coming to an end. So, how did we get here? This conflict didn't start on October the 7th, 2023. There had already been decades of deadly and complex conflict. But the Hamas attack did open this latest bloody chapter. Allahu Akbar! It was a brutal surprise attack. Gunmen rampaged through communities in southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking some 250 back to Gaza as hostages. Israel was quick to respond, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring they were now at war and ordering airstrikes and a siege on Gaza. On the 13th of October, Israel tells the residents of Gaza City to evacuate and move south, and later that month the Israeli military starts its large-scale ground offensive. On the 15th of November, Israeli troops enter Gaza's biggest hospital, Al-Shifa, after a siege that lasted for days. The targeting of hospitals would later provoke outrage, but the IDF says that hospitals are being used by Hamas to conceal underground bases. This was the first truce of the war. Fighting was paused for 4 days to allow the exchange of hostages and prisoners and for aid to enter Gaza. This was eventually extended a week, leading to the freeing of 105 hostages and around 240 Palestinian prisoners. But on the 1st of December, the fighting starts again, with losses on both sides as the temporary truce comes to an end. At the end of February 2024, the Health Ministry in Gaza says the number of deaths in the war has risen above 30,000. Tens of thousands of people protested against the government in Israel at the start of April. They were calling for the government to reach a ceasefire deal and to free dozens of hostages still being held by Hamas. There had been widespread international concern about Israel's military offensive in the southern city of Rafah, but Prime Minister Netanyahu was not deterred. In late May, an airstrike killed 45 people, with Palestinian medics reporting that the strike hit tents for displaced people. 4 hostages are rescued in an Israeli raid in Gaza, an operation celebrated as heroic in Israel as they free the captured people under heavy fire. At the end of July, Hamas's top political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was killed in Iran. Hamas blamed Israel for the apparent assassination, and they named the 7th of October architect, Yahya Sinwar, as their new leader a few days later. Iran was not the only country pulled into the war, with Israel and Hezbollah fighting at the border with Lebanon too. Hezbollah is targeted with a series of pager explosions. And then, at the end of September, the group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, is killed after Israeli strikes in Beirut. Israeli forces cross into Lebanon, and Iran responds by launching 200 missiles at Israel, but full-scale war is avoided. There has now been a full year of fighting. 97 hostages are still being held by Hamas, and it's believed that 41,000 people have been killed in Gaza. Towards the end of November, the International Criminal Court issues arrest warrants for Netanyahu, the former Israeli Defense Secretary Yoav Gallant, and senior Hamas commander Mohammed Diab Ibrahim al-Mazri. Netanyahu's office called the warrants anti-Semitic and rejected the claims of alleged war crimes being committed in Gaza. In mid-January, another ceasefire officially begins. Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners are released, and thousands return to their homes in northern Gaza. Discussions then began over the future of Gaza, with the new US President Donald Trump even suggesting that America could take it over and develop Gaza as the Riviera of the Middle East. But the ceasefire struggles to hold. In early March, Israel says it's cutting off the electricity to Gaza, and then an Israeli airstrike kills 8 people. Then, on the 19th of March, Israel launches what it calls a limited ground operation to retake a key corridor in Gaza. The ceasefire is shattered, with the health ministry in Gaza saying the death toll passes 50,000 by the end of the month. In early May, Netanyahu announces a plan to seize the whole of Gaza and to hold on to it indefinitely. Around this time, Israel's aid blockade on Gaza was coming under international scrutiny. Experts warn that Gazans are starving and at risk of famine. Overnight, between the 12th and 13th of June, Israel strikes Iran. In return, Iran returns fire, trying to overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome air defence system. American B-2 bombers end up striking Iran's nuclear facilities, but it doesn't escalate any further. Meanwhile, the international outcry over aid continues. In early July, the UN claims at least 798 people had been killed while receiving aid over the previous 6 weeks. Weeks later, the World Health Organization claims Gaza is suffering a man-made mass starvation caused by Israel's aid blockade. Israel denies both of those claims, saying there is no famine.
In the face of the growing horror in the Middle East, we are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution.
In late September, Prime Minister Keir Starmer announces the UK will officially recognise Palestine as a state, something he pledged to do in July unless Israel agreed to a ceasefire and allowed the UN to restart the aid supply. Canada, Australia and Portugal also officially recognised Palestinian statehood on the same day. Days after the 2-year anniversary of the war, Israel and Hamas agree to the first phase of Donald Trump's peace plan. It means the release of the remaining 48 hostages, as well as the release of Palestinian prisoners, and the withdrawal of Israeli military forces from most of Gaza, as well as a huge increase in aid. More than 67,000 people have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war, with hopes this latest deal will bring an end to the devastation.